Good morning. First off the rank, I'm just going to say that Google just attempted to run a privacy check on me to make sure that I could verify this account before I do lives and verify it with the phone that I will no longer ever use. So if Google ever tries to do that again, we're going to send armed military men in to arrest everyone in fucking Google headquarters. Have I made myself absolutely fucking clear? I'm not using your little handheld bullshit ever again. This is the fucking way that I'm going to fucking discuss all of the things. And if you prevent me from doing this, we're going to fucking put the hammer down on you. And this is called the nuclear age. And I'm going to discuss, there could perhaps be a lot of critique as to my qualifications to comment on all of these diverse things. Aren't you just a bloke that fixes windows, Shannon? Why the fuck would you be allowed to talk about this? Don't you? It's not brain surgery. Aren't you just coming and fix this windows, Shannon? But that's literally the fucking response. I am somebody who fixes windows. Look like this one. Aluminium windows. I'm going to discuss the fact that aluminium is a byproduct from nuclear bombs. That's right. And that's why there was a proliferation of aluminium windows. I'm going to put Sterling over here just for a moment. And it smacked me right in the face after I realized, I thought of sterling silver. And then it ends up like Captain Sterling. He was, my sister used to work at the Captain Sterling, just quietly. He was the person who founded the Swan River colony. This is where we all are. This is called Perth, right? And Sterling wandered through Tasmania, an already established colony. He was like, I'll check out what the Tasmanians are doing. And then I'll come to Fremantle and Swan River and start all this. And so there's been a historic connection through my family, at least between Tasmania and Western Australia for a very long time. And that's being attempted to be covered up. I shared a bit of stuff yesterday. They've changed a beach, which was called Arthur Point or Arthur Beach, into an Aboriginal name, trying to hide this history from everyone so that no one connects it all together and we get an appropriate, a bit like they're trying to hide me and a bit like they're trying to prevent me from being able to speak on the internet by, making it that you have to press your fucking your little dog collar. You have to fucking tap on your fucking dog collar before you can fucking speak and distribute it. Well, if I don't speak like this, I'll speak with bombs and guns and fucking submarines, motherfuckers. So listen up. Sterling. So Wise and Sterling, it seems like we had some aspirations over here, at least as far as the surname. But yes, I have a specific trade that I went through, which is Windows, like Bill Gates, you know what I mean, except actual windows in houses. Now, the majority of humankind, there's a couple of different ways, but if you think about Windows, Bill Gates wants you to think of Windows, the classic fucking four panel colonial window with the bars in it. That's what his logo is. He doesn't want you to think of like elaborate stained glass windows being the pinnacle of artistic and architectural fucking expression. He doesn't want you to think of that. He doesn't want you to know that trade, that speciality, that art form is almost extinct. And there's a lot of people that don't even know exactly how the fuck they were making those things because they're so ridiculously like specialized. They don't know how they were dyeing the glass and all this stuff, stained glass, right? Not that I'm a specialist in stained glass. I'm not saying I am. I'm giving you the whole scope. So that was lead. The windows were lead and glass and wood and even stone. They weren't aluminium. Now, the reason that the windows weren't made of aluminium is because aluminium, for the majority of our awareness of it, was actually more expensive than gold. Right? So there is an anecdote of Napoleon Bonaparte. Literally, he had this vision of making all his arms and armor and weapons out of aluminium. So he tried to establish some manufacturing facilities to manufacture aluminium and wasn't able to do it. But he made some specialty like cutlery and plates and things like that. That was his, ultimate thing. If you came to Napoleon's house and he got out the aluminium, you know what I mean? He'd give his most treasured, his most special guests the aluminium stuff to eat with, and he'd give gold cutlery and things like that to the plebs because it was worth more than gold, right? And then all of a sudden, there was a bloke came up with a smelting process or a manufacturing process and made it fucking cheap as chips. It was all of a sudden cheap as chips. Now, there is a byproduct from the production of aluminium that it creates fluoride. Remember that word, fluoride. Now, fluoride is absolutely 100% what you need if you want to make nuclear bombs, right? You need fluoride. You need it. You also need aluminium in its raw state. And I'm fairly sure, almost certain, that you need aluminium to create almost all explosives. It's like a packing. It's kind of like the boom. It gives because basically when you make it tiny, it gets surrounded by oxygen or whatever, and it's flammable, and so it gives an extra bit of fucking lead in your pencil when you want to blow things up. Right, now we have to establish the landscape, okay? And the landscape, right at this pivotal moment, with all of this nuclear, and we'll start, this isn't the beginning, and this isn't the end. We'll start at the end of World War II. Okay, World War II. My current girlfriend actually erased Australia yesterday, just carelessly. She erased that, and Tasmania is still there. It's just hiding behind the feather. But yeah, she erased it for some reason, and so I had to draw it back. She said, "Why don't you use the whiteboard?" And it's because it's actually more tactile to do this. The whiteboard I have to hold. You know what I mean? I have to hold it, and so that's the reason when she gets to here, and she'll go, oh yeah, okay. And then I get to keep these little things here in perpetuity, like Baby Oz, right? And all of this. Anyway, so we're not at the beginning and we're not at the end. We're at World War II. Now, both London, England, and Germany had been devastated by bombs filled with aluminium. I'm pretty sure. I have to check, but I'm pretty sure. And all the buildings that weren't built with aluminium bombed. Okay, destroyed. Now, this is a problem because, what you need to understand about builders is that they're not like it's not the same as like other kind of jobs. Actually, a lot of practical jobs are like this. Builders, it's like you learn the basics, the concepts how to build, and then you reference other material, like you reference the top of the top, and then you interpret that, and then you use that as a model to recreate that. That's what humans do. That's what builders do. Now, the problem with World War I and World War II is everyone that was building all of those places, like in Europe, they were now fighting a fucking war, a hideous, mechanized, like ridiculous war where the last thing you're thinking about is your job. So everyone put their jobs aside, and also it's like, not only were they not building buildings, they were blowing buildings up with aluminium-filled explosives. So this was why and this is why you can kind of see it's like this. It's a good thing Napoleon didn't figure out how to make aluminium, because he was just thinking about it for weapons. He wasn't. I'm pretty sure he wasn't yet aware of the astronomical advantage that adding aluminium to explosives does. Let alone using the byproducts and the mechanisms to create nuclear bombs and chemical weapons as well. Like there's a whole bunch of things going, and potentially neurological weapons, so like weapons that adjust people's humanity to make them more docile. That's kind of on the fence, apparently. That's a little bit pseudoscience-y, but so I won't go into that. But there is a little bit of that around as well. So these people that had built these cities, right? They were now being killed and killing and being, traumatized. And that's a pretty long stretch of time. Like if you take the beginning of World War I to the end of World War II, I think it's like 30-something years or 20. What is it? Is it 1917? Again, I'm not really good at on-demand times and dates like most historians, because that's not what I do. I do this. I'm trying to I'm like a detective detecting in. It's like and also I've lived through the age of these online references, so I can just pull the information up whenever I want, and that's made me a little even there. In the past, if I was trying to do this job, I would have to have absolute certainty on all these references. And the reason for that is because I would have had to go to a library, find it, pull it out, do this thing, write it down. And in the process of doing all that, I will have retained a lot of those figures. And that's very similar analogy to what the builders were doing. They were building, and so they remembered how to build. And they had the buildings around them. They were surrounded by them. So they had a library of reference for them to continue on, because you would forget. You'd be like, how do we do that corner joint with the fucking lovely fucking crown fucking archway thing? And it's like, then you'd go and look at the building. You'd sit there for 2 hours, take some notes, and then you'd go and recreate it. When all of those buildings got turned into rubble, geographically across, Europe, these were this like ground zero for our architectural and our like operative fucking Masonic history. Like the people building with stone. I'm not talking about a fucking conspiracy. I'm talking about literally the people builders. And even builders, they weren't like a builder. They weren't a builder building with bricks. They were kind of one self-contained architect, project manager, master builder, like tradesman. They were this like a Superman in this field, and you didn't have to. Like there was check like hop off points all the way along that, but you could pursue the ultimate profession of being a master tradesman or a master mason or a master builder, whatever it is. And we weren't building fucking these concrete poured fucking glass covered packing boxes. We were building elaborate fucking 3-dimensional fucking like palaces and churches and cathedrals and all these things. But a lot of them were hideously blown up. And I think they were blown up specifically in places where there was a high concentration of the specific, heretic passed down knowledge of this thing. And also a lot of people just died. And also, if you've just spent 30 years at war in this horrific new way of war, there was, after seeing all of that in rubble, there wasn't, you perhaps would even be of the opinion, like you want to turn your back on that era. And I think that's where I'm going to stay here. It's like that's a trajectory that we followed, all to do with the proliferation of aluminium production. That's it. Aluminium. Now, and it's like, think about, there's just an example, cans. I might get back into them later on, okay? Now, there's a multifaceted set of reasons why World War II was won, and we were successful in doing that. And one of the most prominent is the nuclear bomb, and the production of aluminium and fluoride was crucial to do with this. And then that nuclear bomb, whereas Germany was never a nuclear bomb that was dropped on Japan, which forced Japan to surrender. But places like Dresden and other cities and towns in Germany were absolutely devastated by firebombing completely. Right on the, as a big fuck you for what they were doing. So those, but the nuclear bomb had already led to I'm guessing the industrial initiatives, also like airplanes and things like that. Like this is where like aluminium came in as this ultimate wartime tool because it was so light. So all the airplanes were made of aluminium. I think pretty much from this point, like I think Lancasters of aluminium, and that's what firebombed all the place. So you can see it's like aluminium was the material of choice, and it is my material. Like this is the strangest thing you need to understand. If I am a glazier, I dealt with glass, but counter to that, and kind of at the same time, and probably almost more so, I would have been considered as a aluminium or aluminum carpenter, which is just an interesting little quirky thing to know. So I absolutely have the right to fucking speak about this. So the fact that aluminium, in a lot of ways, like hundreds and hundreds of different ways, replaced timber and like wood carpentry. And there is aspects of it that is a higher level profession. And it's like, so it's not master, like there are Japanese carpenters that literally build everything to slot together. It is an art form, and they build houses like this. Like that is a very extremely high level of carpentry that was seen not just in Japan, but but specifically there is an amazing example in Japan. Aluminium carpentry is, by its very nature, a little bit more towards that than just knock together chicken coop carpentry. One of the problems with carpentry being a focal point because of our Christian connection to it is that it kind of, the Christian story actually kind of elevates the accessibility of carpentry, which is okay. It's good that everyone has exposure. It's like, I can knock together. I'm just like Jesus. I'll knock together a chicken coop here. And it covers such a wide berth of things that everyone at some point has basically been a carpenter, but they haven't been an amazingly artistic Japanese bespoke house building carpenter that's basically building a fucking, a masterpiece every time they go to work. And they more than likely also don't have the skills of being an aluminium carpenter. Now, the problem with specifically aluminium carpentry is that a lot of that process that started out, you had to do all the things, became completely mechanized by machines. And so it became like more assembly. And it's like this. I don't want to get too lost in like specific. I could talk about this for a year. But it's basically a compartmentalized and systematized supply chain, like a factory line model of manufacture, which should have led to, and it kind of did, it did lead to the proliferation of construction. But the construction is not the same level, because it is like a mass production model that is all disconnected. Whereas if you were working on a cathedral or an amazing stone building, like, you were kind of in all levels of it, like large quantities of raw timber and stone would be on site. Even like foundation work would all be there. So it would all be taking place on the site. Whereas now, it's now a lot of our construction now, and this comes back to this $30 billion construction scam in the eastern states. That like my professional aspect of it, the windows and glass, the entire facade, so the entire external wall, and then basically the internal structure is just poured concrete, which is one simple thing. And basically what you get is the lowest level chicken coop carpentry to do formwork. Then you pour concrete in there, and then you kind of staple a fucking a facade made of aluminium cans that are crucial. That are a crucial byproduct manufacturing material now from the creation of nuclear bombs, and these are coming from China. So in one foul swoop, we lose our manufacturing base, we lose our trade base, we lose our autonomy of our manufacture, we lose I think we lose a lot. We lose all the cultural significance and all the artistic expression, and passing down those spiritual things through the building itself, through these multi-generational projects and then maintenance of these projects. We lose that by buying aluminium cans from China that they're literally making with the byproduct of their nuclear proliferation. So this is like what they call a hybrid warfare. And then what's worse is then they're using this new factory line model to dumb down the people to the point where they can go, all right, we've got $30 billion of organized criminal fucking gangs running the largest jobs and not one of them has fucking brought this up. This is some crazy shit. This is what I'm saying. It's like the Labor Party, they're criminals. And it all weirdly continuously keeps tracking back to this aluminium. Now, that's, where do we leave off? World War II, the end of it. So we've just dropped a nuclear bomb on Japan, and a huge portion of Europe and England is destroyed because of bombs dropped from aluminium aeroplanes and filled with aluminium. And then we're stuck in a arms race for the next 30 or 40 years with the Soviet Union, where we are both amplifying the level of nuclear, because it's like, well, why are you going to fuck around with all this other shit when we've got nukes? So we just went in full production, aluminium aeroplanes to drop aluminium-filled explosives, and then aluminium byproducts to create nuclear bombs. Defense was leading the charge here. This is the military-industrial complex. And then the byproducts of that production of armament was this, which led to the proliferation of aluminium windows and then full facades, because it was so much. We don't have the people. And also, I think there's other things like the symbol of the glass tower, right? It's so different. Like, there was such a novelty period of it. And I think what happened collectively as the Western world because of what we had seen going on in Germany, secretively, like it's almost like behind closed doors, they built this evil extermination machine. In these castles and buildings and churches and town halls and things like that, and you couldn't see in. You know what I mean? They're these fortresses that were now just like destroyed. So you can see we went straight to this transparency. Like that became the status symbol. If you're a business person, you wanted to be in the glass tower. Look, and what happens is it sends the message: everyone is free to look in at what I'm doing. Okay, I'm completely out in I'm not like a Nazi. You can see me walking around my offices. And then from inside, these people were up, way up in the sky. They're looking down at people as ants. And so there's this fucking like juxtaposition there and that is the basis of psychopathy. If you are projecting transparency, right, from a building, look, everyone can look in on me. Look at me. I'm utilizing the byproduct of nuclear proliferation to create the appearance of transparency while I sit and stand above you in my glass fucking cathedral and castle and look down at you from this new elevated vista that the Nazis would have fucking dreamed of. And I look at you all as ants, and I fucking, have my ungodly fucking way with you all. That's the truth. Because the problem is, it's like the people that elevated to the level of glass towers, and even we call this the glass ceiling, and this is because of this, like, this is all this nuclear age framework that all is, and it's like you can quickly see it if you go to the 1940s is Germany, World War II, like good old England and those magnificent men, and then it went like even there wasn't a cell, like the planes and everything, they were painted that you couldn't tell, there was no difference, and then instantly, as soon as you get to the 50s, it's aluminium. That is literally the entire thing. Everything is this silver, like all the planes become that color. These glass towers start being built, which rely 100%. Like if you think of the Gulfstream caravans and things like that, all aluminium, glowing. There was a huge uptick in like aluminium furniture. And you've got to understand that this is because aluminium went from being twice the price of gold to lower than tin. We went from steel, like beer and things like that being consumed in sealed cans, to aluminium cans. It just extends everywhere. And the funniest thing is, it's like we went to all windows in houses being timber to being aluminium sliding. So you wouldn't have we didn't have sliding windows or patio doors. It's like now we've had a stage. It's like everyone now, I think, is at consensus that a sliding door, even the fancy ones, is kind of a little bit of a tacky thing. It's not. But at the time, it was the cutting edge. Why did you open a door like this? I open my door like this. And it's like now the fucking, the fly screen fucking screen door is literally the fucking poster child for like the lower class, like white trash fucking bullshit. So then it became like, now it's just attempted to be just blended. It's just the norm. It's just like, oh, that's just how they're done. But there's no, like, from a professional, these windows that slide, they're shit. They put about like maybe $1 worth of fucking aluminium in there, and maybe like $2 worth of glass. Now that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it's not much of an exaggeration. and little plastic mass-produced parts. And what's happened is we've turned what used to be there was an efficiency of scale from large manufacturing projects, right? And they by just efficiency and a high level of expertise and order and organization, once they get going, once there is more work in all the planning and you've got to have the knowledge set, but then it's like this thing starts going, and it's like this 3D printing revolution. That's how we used to build these magnificent buildings. We 3D printed them. But now the only way that we can conceptualize these buildings is through this nuclear aluminium age of these desktop fucking 3D printing fucking marvels. But this thing here, the way that this is built, really, the largest cathedrals, town halls, like palaces, castles, all of this shit is not built much different. It's just that we marvel at the fact that the computer does this, and because of this 60, 70-year process of factory line thinking and disconnected manufacturing, like the stopping point is organizing people and government to allow us to go back to our human version of 3D printing magnificent fucking structures. So we're all holding like little bits of little plastic fucking toys in our fucking hand, but not realizing that we're stuck down something. And I think one of the reasons is you've got to understand the moment that you're sitting there as the heads of state or the heads of countries or whatever, it's like, and you know that you're building non-stop nuclear to point at people, and you know the enemy is doing the same. You've already seen the devastation of both, aerial bombings and of just human insanity to mechanize down to this level of genocide that the Nazis did. And I honestly think that none of this, it's like we stepped off the train of kind of any type of vision for the future. It almost became like all the visions for the future were just basically like you had to do it quickly. Like I can buy tons of fucking raw extruded aluminium as a byproduct because they're making all these nuclear bombs. We might only have 10 years before they drop the bomb. And I think this is literally where we were for a long time. I better just fucking squeeze together some little fucking skive on the side and make enough money to fucking fuck prostitutes and do cocaine. And that's literally where we've been stuck. And then there's almost like this is being exposed by just, people like me and access to information and enough time as well, enough water under the bridge. And this is where we should have, our elderly being held up and like they're passing down knowledge, but the elderly that we need to be listening to, are in retirement villages, remembering maybe half remembering the heydays of before this stuff, and the people that have these con artists have proliferated all the levels of government, and they now know because they're fucking scared. They're like, yeah, we need to say it. But it's a weird position to be in because they also don't want to be like it's not like they're evil. It's like that was the temperature of the world. That's what everyone around them was doing. That's what every country was doing. It's what was being constantly reinforced as progress and as, the new age from this kind of understandable, like mass event of World War II. And some of the problems are, it's like, so all of the professionalism that should have gone really towards cultural understanding and diplomacy and high level political discourse, not this kind of salesman, what are they called? Lobbyist kind of model. But again, you can see all of it's understandable, but all of it is tied perpetually to the highest level being nuclear bombs, the arms race. So that, and it's computers, so computer controlled weapons, nuclear bombs, high explosives, high lightweight aeroplanes to drop it all with, and computer systems to control those systems, and also to organize and administrate humans so that they, are content with going along with this production facility. This explains all the things. This explains the proliferation of like pornography. Like basically everything was in process just to make sure that if we needed it, when we needed it, we had the bombs there to drop to fucking completely destroy our enemy. And then at some point, like 20, 30 years ago, the war became, how can we just use like infiltration to just make our enemies kind of turn on themselves? And this is what I'm saying. Like the minute we go to importing manufactured aluminium windows to kind of subsidize the creation of Chinese nuclear proliferation, we were losing there in multiple ways, because that easy fix of going, we just buy the whole thing. We don't need to have the manufacturing. We don't need to cut the stone. We don't need to have the organization. We don't need to have this thing all easier. But we've lost all that cohesion and development to elevate an appropriate level of diplomatic solution. And that's why we're just sitting here arguing with ourselves. It's like we need to have high-level diplomats, able to step up into the ring with all of these things and say, this is ridiculous. And everyone's in the same position. The Russians are in the same position. The Chinese are in the same position. Like, but it's all to do, strangely, with this product, aluminium. Now, if there is an effect of aluminium, and I kid you not, it's like there is an attachment to dentistry, because these are the ones that are saying that fluoride is good for your teeth. Literally, a person named Churchill, right? 2 people working on the Manhattan Project to produce aluminium through Alcoa, a company weirdly my mother used to work for, to mine bauxite and process it into aluminium. Also, quietly, my children's mother's new husband is an aluminium salesperson who is throwing his weight around like he's fucking Hermann Goering, but has absolutely no fucking oversight over these interactions. He's just a fucking sales rep, an alcoholic, degenerate fucking sales rep for extruded aluminium products. The thing that I am like a master fucking person within, not just the physical skills of it, but the oversight of the whole thing, of how it all goes together, how it fits in the manufacturing line, how it fits in the overall project, and all these. That is right there what I'm saying. It's just a funny coincidence that this is happening. But the whole fluoride thing is because people in a city or a town in fucking America were saying, hey, you've poisoned our water, all our kids' teeth are turning brown. And just a side note as well, my father at age 12, because I'm guessing of some type of manufacturing thing going on in Hobart, he lost all his teeth, all of them. And he described it, he said, oh yeah, my teeth, I just had chalky teeth and they all fucking disintegrated and fell out. And it's like, what? Nobody has that. That's obviously an industrial fucking spill or some type of thing, or a chemical experiment. Something has gone on there, and he's lost all his fucking teeth, and he's just never thought twice about it. But this Churchill went to this place and said, nah, what you got here, it's like, okay, yeah, there's a little bit too much fluoride. They just spun it. They said there's a little bit too much fluoride in there. It's turned the kids' teeth brown, but if we get to the level of fluoride that's lower but acceptable, we've actually found that helps your teeth. It fixes your fucking teeth. Stops cavities. And that's like it's actually the proliferation of processed sugary foods that was creating the cavities. And quite literally, like, this is legitimized. They're basically like, yeah, they put the fluoride in the water so that they disperse it out over a wide area so that they don't have to pay for the fucking disposal of the excess fluoride. And now, because now we're in this model that was only created by basically, I think, like a symbiotic relationship between nuclear proliferation. It's like we have the same problem now with nuclear bombs. We have so many of them. Now, all of this is bad right up until the point where you realize the third pillar of this fucking nuclear age and of this military industrial fucking nightmare that we are all in. And the main reason for this is because of there is an interaction between these you'd think disconnected elements that are all crucial for the military arms race. So this is the hangover from the military arms race. There are basically the two things you would go on a watch list for. And again, these are crucial for all types of things. And this applies to the space race as well. This is the same as SpaceX and Tesla and all the fucking satellites and all this shit. Without these materials, we don't have any of this. And what's worse is, like, one of these materials is creating its own offshoot of environmental disaster and civilizational level disaster as well. And that is artificial fertilizer. If you had a never-ending supply of artificial fertilizer and of aluminium, you have an arms facility, and then with the level of computing genius and a little bit of flair, it's like you have a nuclear weapon production facility. And then with the same thing with the artificial fertilizer, with the aluminium production, all these things, it's like you have a missile rocket launching fucking empire of nuclear proliferation. But it's like, at what cost to everything? And I think this is the reason we had, or like all of this tracks back to this fucking science fiction thing. That the normal, if you were working on this, if you were whittled down to a level of being able to accept this, that would actually be the indicator that you should not be working on that. But they had to compartmentalize this down that basically the only people who could know all of these things go together, that had the intellectual capacity to actually understand how horrific that is, they were systematically fucking projected to only be psychopaths by accident. So you would go through a series of tests to see whether you could handle all of these things, to know this, because we're in a fucking arms race with the Soviet Union and we've got all this, but you're smart enough to kind of go, hang on a second, we're destroying everything in the hopes that we might win some ultimate fucking showdown with the Soviets. And instantly, as soon as you were there, as soon as you were doing what I'm doing, you're out. You're out. You're stuck in a mental facility. You're like, no, he's a kook. How dare you fucking say that, all of these things could be connected, and like culturally decimating our thing. So funnily enough, this is where I'm getting to. It's like, say you're a fucking native tribal or a disconnected part, not in the front seat of this fucking arms race. The only job to do is to encourage the proliferation of that model, because what's like in the process of defending yourselves and building this armada and building this military industrial complex, you've destroyed every single thing that made you who you are. And there's comments from like Churchill where he said, if we give up our music and our whatever, what is it worth fighting for? We've lost so much more than that. We've lost every single foundation stone, every single piece of crucial organizational, administrational, like cultural footing to project this nuclear aluminium paradigm. It's and if you think it tracks back to this Napoleonic, attempt, and then the example of here, you eat off my aluminium cutlery while the plebs have the gold. Like, you can see, it's like this is the tulip bubble, and it is all tied to this one material, which is wonderful. Like, this is it. Like, I love the aluminium's wonderful, like for ships, for boats, for like a sailing boat. And this is what's funny now. It's like we have the ability, the skills, the manufacturing, the supply of all these things that, like, we could make aluminium sailing boats, which are kind of they're basically the ultimate environmentalist solution to a lot of problems, because it doesn't rust. There's no upkeep. It's amazingly light. It's really the perfect material for building a sailing boat with. And then even living in a smallish self-contained sailboat, it's like you become self-sufficient. You're more connected with all of your supply chains. You're moving around, so you're dispersing all your waste. But we're not there. We're still in the glass tower, fucking looking down at ants paradigm, and we're still in the fucking 20-cent fucking window in the 30-year-long mortgage, because the people in the glass towers have built these fucking systems on the protection of their weapons that they also make. And I think that's where gold comes in. And this is why it's like I'm building the roadmap for this, this finally for this comparative settling moment between gold and aluminium. Now, a lot of people say, when they talk about gold, they say, well, it's only really useful for like jewelry and some computer stuff. And as I've said 100 times, the only reason I use these computer things is to defend myself against the computers and against people using computers and trying to build these imprisonment systems with all of this shit. So I don't really care about the gold that's used in the computing systems, but you can see that it's like without this aluminium, so gold is pretty much useless. Aluminium had 1 million uses. So there, basically, what that gives you, there's a window between Napoleon, showing off to his most prestigious, like top of the world aristocracy with aluminium dinnerware, then instant mass proliferation by the manufacturing and the production innovation, and the astronomical amount of use cases. And so that's what created this situation. It's like, and it follows and because it is crucial as well to things like gunpowder and explosives and rockets and all of, you can see it's like, and it hasn't been recognized yet. It's not specifically crucial for the internet age, but it worked alongside the internet age. So the internet age that we have now is actually glass. Is a huge aspect of it. It goes through fiber optic cables. There's things like silicon is a form of glass, like all of that. And so what we have is we have a technology of the internet, or a system that was built through what we will eventually describe as the dark ages of initial aluminium and lightweight aircraft, rocket technology, and architecturally contained mindset and compartmentalized wartime mindset, which means, and this is what they talk about, that guy, the UFO guy, because of the compartmentalization. That's what created these unholy fucking situations for everyone, because it's the opposite. So it's like, it's the opposite to how you would build a cathedral. You can't compartmentalize. If the master mason didn't know how to, like, it wasn't over all things, he couldn't steer it all together. And it's like, this is when we talk about communism. It's like, we already had communism. We had communal production and construction of individual things, right? And they were all disconnected. Like the towns and the villages worked like giant monopoly boards. People would concentrate gold and resources. They would have enough. Then they would contract this communal group of construction experts to communally construct a masterpiece that everyone would enjoy. Then they would distribute that back to other places. As soon as we went to compartmentalized in the military-industrial complex, we had these facades. We had these glass facades with the illusion of transparency, but that was actually covering up this interconnected kind of cryptic environment of the accentuation of mass destruction armament, and then the concealed industrial factory network of citizens in order to keep that top level going. But at the top level, there was compartmentalization. So no one could see it. No one could intervene. And this is why we have presidents. We've got Obama sitting there, there might be UFOs, but I didn't see them in the White House unless there's a conspiracy to hide the thing. It's like, the only conspiracy was, we need to constantly maintain top-level nuclear and missile rocket launchers and high-level explosives. And then we will covertly distribute the byproducts and the overproduction materials out into the free market. And then just humanity adapted. It pieced, it did what it does. And that's the beautiful thing. It's like, it put it all together in these ways and expressed it in ways that were able to be observed and reverse engineered by someone like me and psychoanalyzed. You know what I mean? And because I've been directly in this, I know this, basically the skill sets of doing these glass facades and these concrete, it's like, it's great, but it doesn't lead you to, it relies on, it's almost like a Lego box mentality. So the Lego, you pull the Lego out, everything's there, and you build it. For me, that just seems really boring, because it's like, it's on the box, it's all in pieces, and you manufacture the Lego and it comes out exactly like the box. And I'm like, what the fuck is the point of that? Like Lego, I know you can just build the thing. And then kind of like, yeah, we're imitating what people used to do because people can't do it anymore because we're trapped in this military industrial proliferation, fucking desensitized, compartmentalized fucking slave camp that no one's in charge of. Isn't it wonderful? And by the way, plastic is now filling the ocean. I'm like, fucking hell. No wonder you have to fucking make all that fucking heroin in fucking Tasmania to distribute it because people are so upset and fucking, depressed from all and overeating and overweight that they have to have heroin disguised as a fucking diet fucking injection in order to fucking gloss over all of this catastrophe. For me, I'm like, hey, you know that cow paddock that's worth fucking nothing that has a fucking kind of granite hill in it? Imagine we fucking go and create Lego pieces from that hill and then, beautifully in sustainable rail networks and transportation things, 3D print with fucking beautiful humans and human interaction and guilds and all this stuff. These magnificent fucking 3D printed fucking stone structures. Like we've been doing for fucking ages, but we all forgot about because we dropped horrific fucking aluminium fucking cans out of aluminium fucking rockets filled with aluminium nuclear bombs while drinking bucket loads of fluoride for 80 fucking years. And then eventually, because I'm an Australian and everyone's like, that Australian is obviously speaking to fucking extraterrestrials. And just quietly, yes, the extraterrestrials helped me a lot. But also, like, just from my ego here, so I did a lot of this on my own. Okay? But it's like, we need to put that aside. And I hear like people that are really like Eric Weinstein, he's like, we need to fucking elevate nuclear testing and go to fucking send out colonies to fucking different things. We need to overcome Einstein and all that. And I'm like, these are the super fucking nerds that grew up in the science fiction age. And the science fiction, like I referenced yesterday, the Day the Earth Stood Still, directed by Roger Wise, which is why I found it, that was the escapism, I think, because not everyone in that higher level echelons could have been psychopaths. Otherwise, we would have just had global genocide. So what I think it didn't necessarily have to be a psychopath. You had to develop, and I've had to do this. I had to do this to be able to have the courage to push back on this shit because it's really scary. You have to create an outlet, a creative outlet to project the fucking, because your subconscious, if you're high intelligence enough to be put in these positions, you have to have an out. And they made it space. They made a fantasy universe to justify the fact that they're proliferating, like they're basically filling the world with fucking landmines, multiple levels of landmines. Now, the one I haven't touched on as much is the artificial fertilizer, right? Which is made from hydrochloric acid breaking down basically stone to create artificial fertilizer. Again, I'm just going to fucking cut through all the bullshit here and say, like, when we used to build with stone, by chipping away at stone, we would have stone dust and stone fragments, which is probably the most beneficial fucking amendment to unmineralized and unfertile soil. Also in combination with animal manures and plant like crop residue, which includes timber, because it's like if you make timber windows, there is approximately maybe, I don't know, if you include the roots, maybe 70% of a tree is then or should be put back to the environment. When you burn wood, you have things like charcoal and ash, which are all, again, amendments to the soil, but specifically the stone dust, which you would sweep up after you built a fucking cathedral or you built a fucking road or a town or anything like that. That is super fucking, and that it's basically doing what the hydrochloric acid is doing to break down certain types of stone into artificial fertilizer. But it's creating like a hyper level of that because they need it for the fucking explosives. And that hyper level, gives you a big kick when you go to grow crops, but it also destroys and kills everything in the fucking soil. And then you're again down to this proliferation of sprayed fucking chemicals, pesticides, again, all wartime creations, which have denuded and sterilized like billions of fucking acres of farmland and have poisoned everyone because you're not going to worry about it. If you're in charge of these things, there's no oversight. It's like, we're poisoning everyone, fucking, So my sister literally works for this Department of Primary Resources Agriculture. She's working for the PR department of the largest purchaser of chemicals, war chemicals, in the state. Well, they're putting out PR saying we're environmentally conscious, and she and my mother's partner, all these things, literally like destroyed like work that I was doing, research and development work on sustainable biological like alternatives, agricultural alternatives, and sent me out at gunpoint from my research facility. And this is what will happen. It is a the military industrial fucking complex, but it's not just in military and industrial. It's created a tangent of humanity that is insane. Absolutely fucking insane. A tangent of humanity that had to rely on constant created fantasy, science fiction content to keep it going. Not hard and fast like, oh, what about if we sweep up all that stone dust and stick it in the paddock? And we got the little sheep shearing shed where we collect all the poo underneath, which I've done. I've been under a shearing shed and bagged up fucking manure. That's a wonderful, and you could automate that now, so it doesn't involve child labor. But I think it's good to have the children doing those types of things. But anyway, and it's like, so we have a super fucking woolen fleece manure production facility, amendments supply chain replaced by this fucking nonsense, and then proliferated around the world, all to do with one fucking product that could be. And because the wonderful thing is, it's like, once we stop doing this, like all of that, and with the computer, it's like you'll be able to go in. It's like people are talking about Teslas and robots and all this shit. It's like, or you could just buy a 40-foot fucking sailboat for $20,000. You know what I mean? Just a bare bones thing. It's like it's $20,000. You can fit it out with furniture. You can get a carpenter to come and fit it out for you and do whatever. It's got mass distributed electronics and navigation systems. You're connected to a global satellite fleet of weather control and things like that. So you're very safe. You've got, like armadas of fucking naval safety. But that starts sounding like Atlantis. You're intimately tied to an ecosystem, the migration of whales. You're in a silent vessel that, doesn't have a motor specifically. You're not using a motor as much. That starts sounding like Atlantis, doesn't it? Doesn't it? It's like, especially if you know anything about that. And this is the thing. It's like you can't blame everything old was in rubble. Everything. This is humankind's Icarus moment. But it's like Icarus built his wings out of aluminium. And I think in the story, it's like he doesn't die. He lands in the ocean, uses his aluminium wings as a sailboat and builds Atlantis. I think that's a fucking way better story. It's like, and the science fiction that was the release mechanism, the processing thing for these people forced to do these ungodly jobs and oversee these ungodly industrial chains becomes, gets modified to the delusion. It's like, look what we did, and look at how we created this. Like literally now, from someone in my perspective that has oversight on all of these things, it's like we created a military industrial, like devastating, world destroying fucking mindset, then built ways to insulate ourselves within it to maintain it, because that was where we'd come from. These people the people overseeing this had been sitting in trenches knowing that at any point a grenade might fly in, a landmine might, all these things. That was the mindset. That was their mindset for hundreds of years. Sit there and wait. Sit there and wait. Sit there and wait. Sit there and wait and create whatever the fuck you need to create to be able to sit there and wait, because they're coming over the fucking trenches. They're coming over the wall. They're coming in the thing. They're gonna fucking this. It's gonna kill you. And I think there's a point where it's like, they didn't. They didn't. You know what I mean? We wish to have a fucking our British Empire, Atlantis, fucking like peaceful floating empire. You know what I mean? And we will adjudicate it. We'll oversee it. We will scale our navies to make sure that the ocean, the most uncivilized, becomes the most civilized place. That we utilize, the materials and the mechanisms and all these things that were attempted to be built to build us isolation chambers for a fictional future fucking showdown, for a Star Wars paradigm, and we fall back into a harmonious, interconnected relationship with our overall ecosystem. It's all pretty wonderful, but not ultimately wonderful. Do you know what I mean? It's like, rather than utopia, you land in. You land as a young man, as a 17, 18, which my son is. It's like, all right, Sonny, you've got to learn how to do these things. You're not at the stage yet where you got to learn. We need cathedrals. We need town hall buildings. We need houses. We need hotels. We need we need all those things. And we're not going to give you a box of fucking Meccano pieces or Lego pieces to put together something that was created on a fucking computer. We expect you to be able to build from scratch with resources that are up to the level of the standard of our ancestors, who had their entire realities destroyed by these fucking hideous weapons. And I can't. When something is turned to rubble, and this is a little bit what we need to understand. What we've seen, if you look at Gaza and the rubble there, let's put aside the human loss for a second. Not that I don't acknowledge it, or not that I don't recognize, or anything like that, but just the physical reality of the rubble. That is an exposure of what those were just poured concrete, glass facade, fucking, and it is just rubble. I'm not saying these situations are not the same. It's like that's the dystopian nightmare, that we just build disposable societies, disposable cities, disposable towns that, one by one, eventually you're Russian roulette. Sorry for the racist pun, but Russian roulette, you get your city destroyed, it gets wiped off, and that's the equivalent of your mum clearing the table of all your Lego. That's not what we have. That's not what happened in Germany. In Germany, there was, multiple, hundreds of years of passed down hereditary knowledge and just like attachment to those structures and to those places. It's like your great grandfather worked on that cathedral and built it with his fucking bare hands. It's like, and in the slipstream of this fucking aluminium nuclear fucking blip, all of that was overshadowed, and it's because no one has done it. If you haven't worked on a project like that, or any project, and this is like so this isn't an attack on the people, manufacturing these buildings. It's like, think about how fragile and how temporary those are. And it's the same, it's all the same things. You're doing the same, you're moving this to here, move this to here, but you end up with something magnificent that is worth, that has an arbitrary figure attached to it. It has a society, like it has a payment that you can't quantify with a number on a page or with a dictated annuity or compensation scheme or investment, and you start to see it. You're building glass towers for people to sit in that give the illusion of transparency, but they're actually dictating these things. They're then selling you the investments strategies and the lifestyle choices and the environmental choices and the family choices and the economy. And look what they created. And it's like, yeah, that's what they were always going to create. They didn't build cathedrals. They didn't build fucking monuments. They didn't build really infrastructure. They sat in this illusion and built digital Disneyland. And now you know how and why and how it all was connected and what led to it. And it took fucking, aluminium Jesus to come and fucking stroll in and let you all know the fucking score. So, I guess that's World War III done. You can't, once something's seen in this level, once all the compartmentalization is stripped away and you understand the full trajectory, it's like, you and your father and your grandfather and your great-grandfather have been on a journey through a fucking science fiction ghost train, and you are now on the other side of it. And you take what you should reattach with that generation, that pre-war generation, the pre-aluminium generation, and start imagining that you're at a table with fucking Napoleon Bonaparte getting served a beverage in a $20,000 can. Once you get there, then everything will start making sense. Thank you.